Welcome back to The Big Story. We are focusing on the eve of the swearing-in of President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta tomorrow. But we want to divert your attention for just a moment here on The Big Story. The Women in Business Awards Gala is taking place tonight. Caroline B. is there and she joins me now. Caroline?
Good evening to you, Yvonne. I'm here at the Radisson Blu where the event is currently underway. It just started a few minutes ago, and it is a celebration to actually recognize the women in business and what they've been able to achieve so far. It's been a long way for women, and when it comes to business, for them it's been considered a rough terrain just to maybe get contacts to establish themselves in this industry. And the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce has decided to have an event specifically for women to appreciate what they do and also recognize the efforts that are being put by women to move the economy forward. And some of the nominees that we have for this year include Tabitha Karanja, the proprietor of Keroche Breweries. We have CS Amina Mohammed, among other people. And those part of the nominees selected from this year are from different fields. We have the political field, we have business, we have sports, we have engineering. And I was just getting out as the speech started, and we had a lady from the engineering field who said that it's actually hard for her to make way in this business industry, but somehow she's actually been able to do so through the support from other women. And we shall be looking forward to see who exactly is going to be awarded in this event. It is an event by the Kenya National Chamber of Industry, and it is supported by the Standard Group, which is part of the sponsors, the media sponsors for this year. And it is a big night for women who are going to be recognized and their efforts actually applauded for what they are going to do. And actually, part of the delegates or the guests have actually spoken to saying that this is a push for women. It's going to give them morale to be able to continue with their businesses. And for those who are not already entrepreneurs, then they already have that in mind. Once they interact and once they network with other ladies, then it's going to give them a platform to be able to move forward in their businesses. So they're going to be awarding those ladies who have done exceptionally, who have done very well. This is the second year this event is being held, and the Chamber of Commerce is going to look forward and actually going to launch platform for women to be able to interact and move the entrepreneurship of ladies forward. Yvonne?
Thank you. Caroline B. at the Women in Business Awards ceremony that is taking place right now. Let's go back to our top story, the big story on the show tonight. We're speaking to JMA Simeha, who is a NASA strategist. So, Simeha, let me ask you this, because there's been a number of big announcements that have been promised, one including the possible swearing-in of Raila Odinga, but we understand he's not too keen on that.
You know, the leadership of NASA is very particular on what it is doing, how it's doing, and in what context. And one of the things it is not about to do is to do anything that is extra-constitutional. So yes, it's perfectly understandable when the multitudes, the tens of millions of Kenyans demand that Raila Odinga be sworn in as the president of Kenya. But Raila Odinga and the other leaders of NASA have rightly, in my opinion, advised, let us not do anything that is in vain. The interest of the leadership of NASA is not in confrontations. In fact, let me tell you, Yvonne, and tell the country, that if Raila Odinga, and particularly Raila Odinga and Musalia Mudavadi, were for just a bit, maybe just half a day, to step aside and allow the millions of NASA leaders to do what they would wish to do, we wouldn't even be having a swearing-in tomorrow of Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto. I'm telling you this to show you the weight of the responsibility on the shoulders of the leadership of NASA, with regards to the expectations of the tens of millions of people who support NASA across the country, and people who not just support NASA, but they also want to see electoral justice, and they want to see the rescue of our democracy from the capture that it has suffered. Yeah.
Do you think there might be an element of perhaps fatigue or lack of direction with where this is headed, that there might be, you know, reports of, okay, so there's the boycott, the economic boycott that is going on, but, you know, has that perhaps lost its momentum. There was the swearing in, and you now say here that would be extra legal means, as has been said by a number of legal analysts. So, which way? What's the way forward? Tomorrow, we understand you're mourning those that lost their lives. Well and good, allowed to do under the Constitution. But, just what next? What is that next strategy? Because you said President Uhuru Kenyatta's call to you for a dialogue was disingenuous. So where to next? Some may say it doesn't seem like there's a very clear plan or direction.
Well, those who are not part of it will say that, because it won't be clear to them anyhow. So that's not a surprise at all. But first of all, dispel that imagination that there is fatigue or anything like that. No, you can never, for as long as you are a reasonable human being, you can never ever get fatigued of reform, of pushing for reform. The moment you get fatigued, either you've surrendered and raised your hands, that these people may, those who want to push autocracy may step on you, or you've joined them. So please be advised, Yvonne, and those who are watching us, that there is nothing like surrender. There is nothing like running out of steam or anything like that. The economic boycott is well on course. You know very well that NASA is planning and already began to execute through the model, the People's Assembly concept, through the model meeting that happened in Machakos on Saturday. Soon another one, a national one, is going to happen. And it's through these forums, by the way, that political education is going to take place. Because again, you want people to engage in what they're engaging in from an informed and well politically educated point of view. Now, if you are talking about fatigue with regards to dramatic political action, then it's just because you don't have information. And that is the thing, part of the thing I was trying to hint at when I was telling you that if Raila Odinga were to step aside and allow the millions of Kenyans who believe that they have been defrauded and cheated to proceed with their form of political action, you probably would not even have space to cover what would be there, You may
but what happens, Simeha, what happens to those angry voices, those young people who are agitating for change?
Absolutely.
And then there's an economic boycott that many of them may seem far removed from. I mean, I would imagine people in far-flung villages for whom perhaps those products that you're asking them to boycott are products that are far out of their reach anyway to begin with, and who may be feeling restless. Is there a middle ground strategy that NASA can employ to just ensure that you contain that sort of sentiment and start to move the conversation, to a point where both parties can sit at the table?
Yes, there are millions of particularly, young and old, but particularly young people who are so, let me just use the word, extremely angry and unhappy. And I will not call it a middle ground strategy, Yvonne. We have a multi-pronged approach. We have multiple strategies that we are using. The economic boycott is just one of them. Political education is one of them. The people seizing back their sovereign power to make decisions upon critical matters that affect them is another one of them. The people, by the way, have already begun to take down the economic boycott beyond where the technical team and the leaders advised them. And they're doing their own boycotts at local levels. I know in Vihiga County, where I come from, the people are carrying out an extremely effective economic boycott against people who support this tyranny. The police have tried to brutalize them, but the people of Vihiga have completely refused.
What boycott is
People
that?
are boycotting businesses, local businesses. People are connecting with this concept at the local level, when and where they have fact that this business actively supported this autocracy, was seen doing it. They are boycotting, and there are business people already suffering just now in Vihiga County and other places. I'm just mentioning that because I come from there, and I'm there a lot more often. So it's not an alien concept. It is working. What you will soon see, perhaps what you are asking is where we can demonstrate to the media that the Wananchi are now connecting these things: the economic boycott, the political activity, political education. If you go back into history and remember Mohandas Mahatma Karamchand Gandhi and the salt march up to the sea. It looked like a very simple thing: boycott Mzungu salt. Let us make our own salt and let us march to the sea. And it even looked stupid. But look how monumental it was. with regards to the trigger for the independence of India. So there are things in place already, a multiplicity of strategies that go mainly along those pillars I've mentioned: economic boycott, political education, political activity, and people, most of all actually and most powerful, people reining back, taking back rather, seizing back their sovereign power to make decisions on how they want to be governed, to right what has gone wrong themselves, because those who purport to exercise this power are not democratically elected, as the Constitution says they should, if they want this power to be delegated to them.
Okay, so let's understand this, because tomorrow the swearing-in will happen, despite NASA's protestations talking about the legitimacy of this government. That is happening. Delegates are already, arriving in the country. Many of them have arrived already. So, is there no middle? Because when I asked you about, what it would take to come to the table, it would be that the election is vacated and its outcome. But is there any other middle ground? And I'm asking this because it almost seems like the government will continue to run, regardless of the People's Assembly, the economic boycott. So what's the end game? And what do you say to people who say, okay, on one hand, this is what you believe, but there's also a group of other Kenyans who believe that this election was not fraudulent, went ahead with it, the Supreme Court ruled the way it did, and they're saying we now have a president and perhaps to sit down together to have dialogue, talk, and find a way forward.
Yvonne, first of all, NASA wouldn't care less about the so-called swearing in tomorrow. In fact, actually, it's erroneous to say that in spite of NASA's protestations, NASA has not made any protestations about the swearing in of Kenyatta and Ruto because it's of no consequence. What NASA protested about was what was planned as an election, and NASA having come across the facts it came across in terms of the results having been fixed, that is what NASA protested about. And then NASA is protesting about generally the misgovernance of the country, the capture of the instruments of state by basically a fraudulent cabal. That is what NASA is protesting about, not the ceremonies that people want to have. That we don't even begrudge them; they can have their ceremonies. And then you seem to be saying that we will be helpless because this government will continue. You know what? I mean, look at South Africa. The apartheid government, it continued. It was in place in spite of protestations and those fighting for independence in South Africa. It was supported by courts, even by constitution and laws. It was even supported by the church and so on. And same thing in many other places where there has been oppression. But that oppression has been brought down by the people. So it's not going to be a one-day click thing and then you bring down this illegitimate government. And it's not in itself an end to just bring down this government. That is just one thing out of many things that need to happen. This government has to be brought down, and then what is wrong with Kenya in terms of governance, the capture of state by fraudsters, has to be sorted out. So it's not concerning us at all. We know what they are prepared for, and we are prepared to meet them at this game of fighting for the liberation of this nation.
Joseph Simeha, NASA strategist, thank you very much for joining me on The Big Story today, which is the eve of the swearing-in of President-elect Uhuru Kenyatta. Tomorrow, that's slated to happen at 10 o'clock. NASA says they're having their parallel event, which is mourning the lives of those that died last weekend. Their event starts at 11 a.m. I just want to remind you that we did invite Senator Paul Kimani wa Matiang'i. He regrettably was unable to make it to the show tonight. But we want to thank you for that. Please do stay tuned for our extensive coverage of those events happening tomorrow, bright and early, from 6 in the morning. Thanks for joining us on The Big Story tonight. I'm Yvonne Okwara-Matole. Good night.
KTN News. Get the whole story.